All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the City Council Public Hearing Work Session for May the 14th. I'll call this to order, and the clerk will call the roll.
Mayor Brian Mock,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Paul Stovall,
Here.
Councilmember Jimmy First, Councilmember John Mesa, Councilmember Leslie Robson, Councilmember Elmer Veith.
Present.
All right, if I could get someone to approve the agenda for me.
Motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right. All right. No announcements and presentations, right? All right. We'll move on down to the public hearing portion of this. I'll read the rules of order for the public hearing zoning matters. The hearing shall be presided over by the mayor. After calling the hearing to order, the mayor shall request the parcels of property which are subject to the zoning proposal be identified and read. Following such identification and reading, the development director's recommendation shall be presented. The mayor and the city council shall cause the director's written recommendation to be made part of the record. Proponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning the zoning decision. If all 10 minutes are not used, the proponent's remaining time may be reserved for rebuttal. Opponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning each zoning decision. The presentation times may not be reduced, but may be expanded by majority vote, providing they're expanded equally for proponents and opponents. Anyone wishing to speak shall come to the microphone, give your name and address to the city clerk. Please do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. With that, I'll open up the first public hearing this evening, and this is going to be 1901-1900 Century Boulevard. This is a DCI.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Matt Adams, Planning and Development Director for the City of Chamblee. So this application involves a 15-acre site split across 2 different lots. There are 6 variance requests and 9 waivers. This would result in the construction of 374,400 square foot, 5-story, 320 unit mixed use building with associated amenity areas and 530 parking spaces. So the variants that are requested would be to reduce the zoning buffer for mixed use development adjacent to an NR1 zone properties from 40 feet to 30 feet. Variance to reduce the west side yard setback from a commercial dumpster from 5 feet to 3 feet. Variance to decrease the distance of ground floor multifamily residential units from 100 feet to 3 feet. Variance to allow the primary residential entrance to not face Century Boulevard. Variance to allow parking between the building and the street for buildings A and C. Variance to add 4 square feet of impervious surface within a 75-foot no impervious stream buffer setback. A waiver to increase the landscaped area of the supplemental zone from 20% to 77%. Waiver to allow portions of the facades of buildings A, B, and C to not be located immediately adjacent to the supplemental zone. Waiver to allow cementitious fiber lap siding on a building greater than 3 stories. I will note that as we went through the process, the team is aware now that this waiver is no longer required. It was an overly conservative reading of what constitutes cementitious lap siding. Waiver to not utilize type 1 or 2 construction on a building exceeding 3 stories. Waiver to allow mixed-use development with a block length of 511 feet on the north parcel and 545 feet on the south parcel. To allow land disturbance associated with the replacement of an existing parking and landscaping drive aisle within the 40-foot zoning buffer. To reduce the planting strip on the western property lines to 0 feet. To increase the driveway width on the westernmost entrance from 24 feet to 28 feet, and from 24 feet to 32 feet. That is on 1900 and 1901 Century Boulevard, respectively. To allow 3 curb cuts on 1901 Century Boulevard, where otherwise they're allowed a maximum of 2. And that is the last waiver. So the subject site, as I mentioned earlier, contains 2 existing parcels. It's a total of 15.736 acres. Both properties front Century Boulevard, which is a private street. North of 1900 Century Boulevard sits the Hillcrest neighborhood. This is a single-family residential neighborhood. The North Fork Peachtree runs east of both sites and south of 1901 Century Boulevard. Here you can see the street views of the existing site. This is facing 1900 Century Boulevard. These pictures show the existing conditions on that site, and I'd note how the site slopes considerably towards Peachtree Creek. That feature impacts the buildable area of the lot through both the stream buffer requirements, in addition, the considerable amount of size that is taken up by the floodplain. Here you can see the existing stormwater infrastructure, such as it is, in the form of a concrete flume, and a view of the rear parking lot of 1900 Century Boulevard. This is a view of the pedestrian bridge connecting the site to the neighboring properties to the north. This connects to the Medfield Trail neighborhood to the Century Boulevard right-of-way. The site also borders existing commercial sites and provides adequate interparcel connection required by the UDO. Here you could see sites of 1901 Century Boulevard. As with the 1900 Century Boulevard site, there is adequate interparcel connection. We're not concerned about lack of parking. Both sites contain existing office buildings dating from the 1970s. And here again, you can see some of the stormwater infrastructure in the form of a concrete flume and the bridge going over Peachtree Creek. And the best view of the creek you can get from the site, North Fork Peachtree Creek, that is from 1901 Century Boulevard. All right, so the sites hold a combined 81,000 square foot of commercial and office space. Currently, existing sidewalks exist on both sides of the northern and southern right-of-way lines of Century Boulevard. Those are compliant with the requirements of the UDO. However, the landscape strip does not meet the current UDO streetscape requirement, and both sites lack a compliant supplemental zone. I would note there are no previous zoning cases associated with either site that staff is aware of. The proposed five-story buildings will comprise approximately 374,000 square feet with the frontage and walk-up units oriented towards Century Boulevard. The development will include 320 residential units on the north parcel and 218 units on the south parcel at a density of approximately 20 units per acre. Applicant proposes 10,000 square feet of ground floor commercial uses. On the north parcel, there'd be 3,400, and the south parcel is 6,800. A total of 180 parking spaces will be provided on the north parcel, and 350 will be provided on the south parcel. There is also 3.12 acres of open space on 1900 Century Boulevard that will be provided, as well as 5 acres of open space on 1901 Century Boulevard. This constitutes approximately 53% of the northern portion and 50% of the southern portion dedicated as open space. As noted, both sites contain interparcel access, which you can see from this site plan, to neighboring properties in the Highwoods Century Center area. Since the original submission, the applicant has revised their plans to include an easement for trail construction, as well as the dedication of a approximately half-acre portion of the site towards the north of the property, next to property that is already owned by the city of Chamblee. The proposed easement and property to be dedicated is noted on this plan. As I noted previously, the area contains a large area of floodplain. On this plan, you can see the existing parking areas noted in green, bright green that is, and overlaid with the proposed parking. The proposal would result in a total impervious reduction of 25,000 square feet across both sites. The majority of the impervious reduction would be on the northern portion of the site, as you can see from the plan in front of you. Additionally, the proposal would remove 155 square feet of impervious surface from the stream setback and buffer on the northern parcel and 521 square feet from the southern parcel. These are the existing specimen trees on the site. I will note from this plan, which is the next page, that the site retains trees around the creek and in between the property and the neighboring residentially zoned properties to the north. Overall, the site is required to provide a minimum of 815 diameters of breast height of tree canopy. The proposal would retain a total of 7,949 inches of existing tree canopy, including both saved specimen and non-specimen trees. A total of 1,100 inches of existing specimen tree canopy would be removed. The UDO requires recompense for this to the amount of 1,500 inches. The applicant is proposing to replant the majority of that and will also make a payment of $141,000 into the Chamblee Tree Bank Fund for the deficient diameter breast height inches. The proposed landscape plan shows that they would provide sufficient landscape to meet the parking lot landscape requirements. The only exception being the planting zone requirements along the western edge of the site, for which a waiver has been requested. Just as a reminder, parking lots such as this have to contain a 5-foot wide planting strip when it abuts a property line. The applicant has submitted a request to reduce the landscape strip to 0 feet. Here you can see a rendering of Building A. Proposes to use compliant materials such as stone veneer, fiber cement board and batten, fiber cement trimming of various colors, and aluminum features. 12% of Building A would be comprised of stone and 48% of brick on all 4 facades. There is a proposed fenestration of 71%. I'd note the requirement is for 51% to be fenestrated, so they are over the requirement. Here you can see Building B, much the same as Building A in terms of composition and materiality. This is another view of Building B. Here is Building C, again, much the same as the previous 2 buildings, and then another view of Building C. Staff, after reviewing the proposal, is recommending approval of the DCI, as well as approval of variances 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, and waivers 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. We are recommending denial of variances 4 and waivers 3 and 4, which are the request to have the primary residential entrance not face Century Boulevard, the variance to allow fiberboard lap siding on a building greater than 3 stories, again, that is not required here, and then a waiver to not utilize type 1 or 2 construction on a building exceeding 3 stories. Staff is proposing 4 conditions. The first one being that the project be developed in substantial conformity with the site plan received by the Planning and Development Department April 13th, 2026. The second one being that the plans be constructed with the elevations dated received February 27th, 2026. Third condition being that any proposed restaurant tenant would provide parking at a ratio of 1 space per 100 square feet. We're basically asking them to follow the requirements of the UDO. And fourth, that the development include a 20-foot trail easement along the full length of the southern boundary of 1901 Century Boulevard and 1900 Century Boulevard, as well as the 0.45 acre parcel located to the northeast corner. And that those be recorded and executed prior to the issuance of a land disturbance permit. The Design Review Board did meet on this application and proposed 5 conditions. The first one being that the applicant consider possible connection to the Peachtree Creek Greenway. Second, that the applicant provide basic cleanup for a portion of the creek that resides on their property. I would note, if the council is so inclined to approve that condition or adopt it, that you be lenient with how you require that. The state EPD does require more of private citizens than it does of governments with regards to encroachment into the stream bank for cleanup. Number 3, the applicant moved the dumpster on the northeast property line to a compliant location. Number 4, the applicant add additional landscaping to the northeast side of the site and improve pedestrian connectivity. And 5, the applicant improved the left vehicular entrance on the south parcel. With that, I will yield the rest of my time.
Thanks, Matt. All right, I'll open this up for public comment. I do understand that we have several people with us this evening that have hearing impairments, so I would ask that speakers try to speak directly into the microphone and be clear. And we'll open this up for those in favor of this item. Come on up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Den Webb, 1105 West Peachtree Street, Atlanta, Georgia, 30309, here on behalf of the applicant. Before I begin, let me introduce a couple folks here with me tonight. First, Carter Brem with Alliance. Carter, will you raise your hand, please? And to his left is Chris Harrell, who is the project engineer. They're ready and willing to take your questions. I think as some of you have heard, our request next week will be for a 30-day deferral. There are just some loose ends on this that need to be resolved. We have made a lot of progress in the last couple weeks. And I'm pleased to sort of give you an overview of where we are with the project. I'm going to try and not duplicate Matt's presentation to the extent that I can, so I'll be skipping around a little bit. But again, we're going to ask for deferral next week, but let me go ahead and give you a preview of what we're here to talk about. I think this is. So there's an aerial of the site. Again, as Matt mentioned, we are bounded on two sides of Century Boulevard, which, as he indicated, is a private road. That was a surprise to me. We've got 5.8 acres on the north side of Century. We've got 9.94 acres on the south side. All the property is zoned MUBC, which is one of the most intense districts here in the city of Chamblee. And both sites show as Century Center character area under the future land use map, which again contemplates significant intensity, density, and height. This is a survey similar to what Matt showed. I only want to emphasize on this one thing. You heard there's a lot of floodplain on this property, and there really is. On the north side of Century Boulevard, 60% of that land area is in the floodplain or floodway, which is even more restrictive, and 55% on the south side. On the north side, we've got 2.5 acres that's buildable or outside the floodplain, and on the south side, we've got 5.4. So I just want to give you that frame of reference there. I'm going to explain the purpose of this map, which Matt also showed. As you heard, there's about 60,000 square feet of impervious in the floodplain now. We're removing 25,000 square feet of that as part of this development, and this image shows it. What you see in light green is the impervious that exists there today that we'll be removing. Here is the site plan that Matt covered. Again, the request is for 320 multifamily units. We've got 102 on the north side of Century Boulevard. We've got 218 on the south side. The total non-residential space is 10,200 square feet, 3,400 square feet on the north, 6,800 square feet on the south. And I've got an image that I'll show you in a minute that shows you exactly where those non-residential spaces are. This is the a trail map that Matt covered a little bit. I think most of the people that are here tonight are interested in hearing about this. As part of this process, Alliance went back, looked at the comp plan, saw an intent to emphasize connectivity, trails, green space, and we started talking with Councilman Weiss about this and came up with a potential solution here. What Alliance is willing to do is provide for the Peachtree Creek Greenway on this property, as you see indicated there. We've offered to do it in a couple different ways. Number one, we've offered a 20-foot easement. We're perfectly acceptable or happy doing that. We've offered to dedicate that trail to the city or the Greenway. And thirdly, and alternatively, we've actually offered to dedicate not just the trail, but the area that you see between the trail and the creek, which I think would create a very interesting linear park. As you see up there in the upper right-hand corner of that image, you'll see some area in yellow. That actually adjoins an existing, I call it a FEMA park, in the neighborhood to the north. There are, I believe, were some homes that had flooded that were taken down. You know, that is, in my mind, at least a park space. Initially, we wanted to add to it. We've got land area up there. We thought, let's add some acreage to it. But ultimately, if there is interest in the dedication of the land along the creek too, that would really extend that park and create about a 3 to 4 acre linear park that runs down along the side of this property. Another benefit of this is, I know that at some point the Greenway wants to cross the creek and go back towards 85. There's an opportunity to do that either over or under Century Boulevard. And again, you'll notice a trail that juts off in the area to the yellow there. The city has its own Chamblee Trail plan, and we've indicated there where our trail, or our segment of the Peachtree Creek Greenway could actually meet that. So the Greenway would head east, the Chamblee Trail would head north. We've also spoken to Highwoods about extending this trail to Claremont, right? And I've got their verbal commitment to grant an easement comparable in size to what we're proposing from the edge of our trail all the way to Claremont Road. And in the last couple days, we thought of another idea. Why don't we ask Highwoods if they'll just extend that trail north as well, along the property they own north of our site? I believe there's willingness to do that. We've got a little bit more conversation to have on it. Our broker went and met with the CEO yesterday to talk about some of these things. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we could actually provide for essentially the entire segment of the Peachtree Creek Greenway in the city of Chamblee through our site and the other Highwood sites in the area. I've got some elevations that I think are a little bit different than what Matt showed, and I'll just rip through them quickly. Of course, our architect showed his inspirational images. That's what they are, to capture some of the design elements that he focused on. This is a rendering of the south side of this proposed development. You'll notice the tables and chairs and the non-residential space along Century Boulevard. This is an image of the proposal to the north. These are some of the construction materials. We obviously know we're working within the constraints of the DCI, but we're proposing brick, stone, and other comparable accent-type materials. And this is the image I referenced earlier. You can see in light yellow some spaces on this plan. That's where the non-residential space will go on this development. We've had a conversation with Councilman Mesa, too, about maybe looking at some other options for commercial space a little bit closer to the path. And in this 30-day period, we're going to explore that further. I've got a hand-drawn sketch now, but we're going to have something a little bit more engineered, and we'll have conversations about that possibility over the next 30 days. I'm going to skip these renderings here, and I think I will probably stop here. You know, again, we've been working hard on this last couple weeks. We've made a lot of progress, but there are loose ends here, and there's some cool things going on that I really would like to nail down between now and the hearing in June. So we're going to be coming back next week and asking for additional time to resolve those loose ends. Thank you.
About 3 minutes left if anyone wants to speak in favor of this item.
My name is Betsy Eggers, and I put in my little form earlier. Some of you may know me as the founder of the Peachtree Creek Greenway, Inc., but I'm here tonight as a fellow developer. My husband and I, our company was Architect. We built 72 townhomes near the MARTA station, townhomes at Fernwood Park. We rezoned and then sold property on Dresden Drive, where now J. Christopher and other mixed-use development is there. For 22 years, we did a lot of rezoning and residential in the neighborhood. We also built LaFrance Street Lofts in Atlanta and have multiple projects in Decatur. So I just wanted to express my support in what this developer is doing, his willingness to give back to the community and to do a public-private partnership with the city of Chamblee. This is an amazing opportunity of what he's willing to do and work on to give back to the community. And it seems like whatever variances or issues, those are all things that for the benefit of both his development and for the city residents to be able to connect to the Beltline is certainly offset. So I certainly hope that in these 30 days that the whole community will come together and take advantage of this wonderful opportunity that's before you. Thank you.
Else wishing to speak in favor?
I'm Ronnie Mayer. I live in Brookhaven, 2653 Reading Road. I'm in favor of this. I just want to make sure our infrastructure in Chamblee will hold it, and I'm proud of them. They're going to give $140,000 into y'all's tree fund. I just want to make sure that you don't plant these trees under the wires like you did off Chamblee Dunwoody, and 4 of the trees are dead, and somebody just went last week and put fresh mulch under all the trees, even 4 of them that are dead. So let's just think a little smarter. They're gonna give $140,000 in y'all's tree fund. Let's plant the trees away from the wires and a little off. But thank you very much. I think it's a great thing. And we need a noise ordinance in Chamblee. These loud exhaust pipes keeps everybody awake up and down Peachtree. And if they're gonna have all these housing developments there, we need a noise ordinance. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is William Ennis, 2223 Medfield Trail, Chamblee. I'm a resident of Chamblee's Hillcrest neighborhood, living in a home that borders Peachtree Creek, with Century Center just on the other side. I'm here to speak in favor of ensuring the Peachtree Creek Greenway is integrated into the proposed Century Center redevelopment. While this project is a significant redevelopment for our city, it also presents a rare, time-sensitive
1 second, Mr.
opportunity.
Ennis. Does council wish to extend time?
Sure.
Have everybody stand up that's here in support? Because you guys are all saying the same thing, I guess, but
I thought maybe I was
Never
relevant
mind.
because I'm
All right, then-
actually
Have to give
neighboring the
everybody
redevelopment, but sure.
5 minutes?
5
Okay,
minutes.
5 minutes, go ahead.
Okay, all right. I got my timer set. I won't keep you here all night, I promise. While this project is a significant redevelopment for our city, it also presents a rare, time-sensitive opportunity to secure a vital piece of regional infrastructure. I advocate for this inclusion based on the following. Transportation and mobility infrastructure. The PCG is more than a park. It is essential transportation infrastructure. It will support mobility, connectivity, and economic development for the new Century Center, providing residents and employees with alternative transit options. Economic and property value gains. Regional trail systems consistently increase adjacent property values and attract high-quality employers seeking walkable, connected environments. Flagship green infrastructure. Century Center can serve as a premier example of how modern redevelopment and green infrastructure work together to create long-term community value. Completing the regional connection. This segment is vital to completing the 12-plus mile linear path connecting Chamblee to Brookhaven, Buckhead, Midtown, and surrounding areas, the overwhelmingly popular Atlanta Beltline, as well as other communities in Northeast Atlanta. Regional momentum. The Phase 2 and 3 developments are already progressing in neighboring jurisdictions. Advancing the Chamblee segment now ensures our city remains a central participant in the Greenway's economic benefits. Highwoods Properties has envisioned the incorporation of walkable trails in a retail redevelopment of Century Center since at least 2008, when I moved in to my current home. In previous years, city officials have noted that this segment would fundamentally happen when developer is ready to do it. That time is now. Many of my neighbors and I have been waiting these trails for years. We regularly walk the dirt and dream of pavement. I ask that you use your authority to ensure the development serves both the developer's interests and the long-term vision of a connected, walkable Chamblee. To be clear, I'm not asking you to either approve or disapprove of the proposal. I'm asking only that you approve it on the condition that the PCG development is incorporated in the plan. Thank you for your service and for considering this request.
Got almost 3 minutes left, if anyone else. Hey, Max.
Everybody else. My name is Max Wolfarth. I'm the general manager of the big building at the end of Century, the Marriott Hotel Northeast. And I have a little bit different perspective than everybody that spoke before. As somebody that works and hosts guests every day at that location, I think it's a very positive move to have this development for a couple of different reasons. One is the mixed use, to have the retail and possibly restaurants is a positive. Although we do food and beverage and restaurants in the hotel, walkability and accessibility to other venues is very important to hotel guests. Nobody likes to stay in a hotel where you can't walk around and go do things. And then that brings me to the second part, and that's the open space that's going to be provided in the trails. Our guests are constantly looking for something to do, during downtime. They want to get out of the hotel, they want to walk around, they want to see Atlanta, and this gives them a great opportunity to do that. I think the size of the project is perfect. It's not going to put undue stress on Century Boulevard, with I-85 on one side and Claremont on the other. It gives everybody a chance to get where they need to be fairly easily. So we're in favor of the project. Thank you.
Got a minute left.
I can be quick. My name is Hunter Wilson. I live at 2482 Cove Circle Northeast, Brookhaven, and I use the PCG many times per week. So I think extending that is a great opportunity. I biked over 1,000 miles on it. It's not only an avenue, I think, for recreation, but also, for me at least, a bona fide way to commute to and from work, and I think that would be a great step continuing this project to create a more navigable and overall verdant city. So that's all. Thank you.
30 seconds. All right, seeing none, we'll move to opposition. Anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to this project? All right, seeing none, we'll move on down to the next item. This item comes back up, just for clarification, this item does come back up later in the agenda. Council may or may not have questions for the applicant at that time.
So Mayor and Council, this is 2145 Daring Circle. This is a proposal to construct a 13-unit townhouse development with concurrent variances and waivers. So the variance requests are as follows. First, to reduce the required 30-foot zoning buffer for a single-family attached development adjacent to NR1 zone properties to 0 feet, to reduce the minimum open space requirement from 20% to 0%, to reduce the minimum lot size for 6 units from 1,600 square feet to various sizes. I will note again later in the presentation that this variance is not allowed by the UDO, and I'll give the reasons why for that in just a moment. A variance to increase the maximum allowing retaining wall height from 8 feet to 10 feet. A waiver to allow a proposed private street to be constructed at the narrow street standards. To reduce the required street minimum pavement width face to face of curb from 24 feet to 22 feet. That is a lot to say, but I guarantee you it is an actual requirement. To allow a narrow street that is not a through street. To allow a 4-foot wide sidewalk on one side of a proposed narrow street where otherwise a 5-foot sidewalk is required. To increase the maximum private street length from 250 feet to 380 feet without requiring a cul-de-sac. Now earlier I noted that there was a variance that could not be processed. That's variance number 3, as this is because section 280-28A6 prohibits variances to reduce minimum lot area. Because of this, council would be required to deny this request on process. The site is located on the north block face of Daring Circle. This block consists mainly of single-family detached uses, single-family attached uses, and duplexes. The photographs in front of you now show the frontage of the subject property. I would note the steep topography shown towards the street there. This is the existing shared driveway between the subject property, currently contains a duplex, and the neighboring property, which also contains a duplex. These photographs show the front yard. Again, here you can see the topography sloping towards the street. And this photograph shows the side and rear yard where the lot begins to level out, though there is still some uphill slope going towards the rear lot line. The site is zoned village residential. This zoning, along with the proposed use of the site for townhouses, requires a 30-foot zoning buffer between the site and any neighboring NR1 zone properties, such as those directly east of the property on Daring Court. The proposal includes 13 new townhouses, which the UDO calls single-family attached. These would be massed along the eastern edge of the property as shown on this plan. These townhomes, as designed, would encroach on the 30-foot zoning buffer, hence the need for a variance request to reduce the buffer. While this variance request meets the criteria for hardship based on the size, shape, and topography, as well as other criteria, staff finds that granting the request would impair the purposes and intent of the UDO by removing separations between intensive uses and less intensive uses on neighboring properties. The UDO requires townhouse developments with more than 8 units to provide 20% of the site as open space. The site as designed contains 4.2% open space, and the applicant has requested a reduction to 0%. Given that the proposal would maintain the required 20-foot private yard space and the hardships present related to the size, shape, and topography, staff finds that this request meets the criteria for granting a variance. The applicant has also requested variances to increase the allowable height of a retaining wall from 8 feet to 10 feet. You can see on this plan how that retaining wall would slope up as you go from the street, which is over on the left, over on the left, towards the back of the lot on the right. This is due to the topography of the site coupled with the need to install a new street for vehicular access. Staff found that this variance met the criteria for granting a variance based on the hardship present due to the size, shape, and topography of the site. Regarding the streetscape, several waivers have been submitted related to the sidewalks, street width, length of the street, and to allow the lack of a cul-de-sac or turnaround. Staff is in support of these requests except for the request to not provide a turnaround. I would note that any waivers granted by council for the street would not supersede or override any requirements of DeKalb County Fire Marshal related to the width of the street for turnaround radius for emergency vehicle access. Here you can see elevations of the proposed townhouses. The south side elevation shown in the bottom right would be the portion of the project that the public would see along Daring Circle. Here are the rear elevations and the north elevations of the project, and then renderings showing the elevations in the way that's more easily understood in 3 dimensions. As mentioned earlier, the UDO prohibits variances that would reduce the minimum lot area. Because of this, council needs to, or would be required rather, to deny that variance request on process. I would note that the applicant has provided dimensions for the lots that show a compliant size. However, that lot area includes portions of the street that's going to be installed, which, as written in the UDO, could not be counted towards the lot area. As such, the applicant would need to apply for additional regulatory relief to allow those lots to encroach on that street. So because of the hardships I've mentioned earlier, staff is recommending approval of variances 2 and 4 and waivers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. However, staff finds that approval of variance 1 would impair the purposes and intent of the UDO to require adequate separation of use. We're recommending denial of that variance. We're recommending denial of variance 3 due to the fact that it is a prohibited variance in the UDO. And lastly, we are recommending a partial denial of waiver 6 as it relates to not requiring a cul-de-sac, but would support approval of the request to increase the maximum private street length. Should council choose to approve variances 1 and waiver 6, staff would recommend the following conditions. First, that the development be constructed in substantial conformity with the site plan dated April 13th, the elevations dated March 31st, along with any changes needed to meet the remainder of the UDO. We would also note in the conditions that should revisions to the site plan necessitate additional variances and waivers, that the applicant would be required to request those, and that council is not pre-approving variances through this. The UDO takes care of that for us, but we've had several conversations like that recently, so we feel the need to clarify that. The applicant, third condition, the applicant shall install an 8-foot tall privacy fence along the entire length of the property line. For the development, provide a zoning buffer on the eastern property consisting of a 5-foot wide buffer for lots 1 through 4, 15-foot wide buffer for lots 5 through 10, and the zoning buffer reduced to 0 feet for lots 11 through 13. That should council approve variance 1. And 5, the proposed turnaround stub be subjected to review and approval by the DeKalb County Fire Marshal.
All right, is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Come on up. No mistakes.
How are you guys doing this evening? Is my slides in? Okay, thank you. All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being here. I'm sorry, Matt, how do you get it to full screen? Oh. Okay, perfect. There we go, okay. There we go. All right, so here's the renderings and so forth. Please keep in mind that the renderings do not show the adjusted elevations. This road will
Sir,
be.
if you could just tell us your name and
Oh,
your
I'm so
address.
sorry. Brent Hill, 3810 Hartsmill Lane, Brookhaven, Georgia, 30319.
Appreciate it.
So once again, these are the renderings. It does not show the correct topo on that. That had to be adjusted for the private road. As this thing does not go forward. Forward, sorry. Okay. Okay. Next, please. Okay, so as we see here, we have the buffer zone there. It is requested to have that variance, which is variance 1, so that this project can actually be built. We need all the space to be able to do so. I understand that the point of the buffer is to create separation, and most of that is usually noise. And the privacy fence, according to every source that I can find anyway, says that it reduces noise by 6 to 10 decibels. According to the U.S. Forestry, the 100 feet of just pure evergreen trees will only reduce decibel level by 3 to 5 decibels. So a privacy fence alone provides more separation in terms of sound than what 100 feet worth of trees would provide. And so I believe that this provides enough separation. Also, with the way that the property is designed, everything is facing forward. We're trying to stay away from those properties behind so that they can have appropriate separation. They're not involved with the living, if you will, on these units, as you saw with the renderings. Now, next, please. So in terms of the street, and I have these a little bit out of order, I apologize. That circle on the top is a 40-foot radius, which would be required for a cul-de-sac. 45-foot, I drew the wrong size, my apologies. 45-foot is required by code. You can see how large that is and how much space that would take up. But I also want to point out, I'm going to come back to the street thing here in a moment, the cul-de-sac. As you see here, that line underneath is that easement, the utility easement. Without that utility easement, we meet the lot sizes. In regards to variance 3, I would like some consideration towards that utility easement. And if that utility easement is considered towards the lot size, we more than meet the requirements of the lot size. Next, please. And I bring these up. This is the Foxtrot and Avion. Avion in particular has approval along those utility easement without having a variance with it. The Foxtrot was approved for those smaller lot sizes. This is where my mistake came in. I work all over Metro Atlanta. It's hard to know every single thing about the code. I missed the lot sizes, otherwise I would have requested that variance for the utility easement versus reducing the lot sizes. Next, please. So here is the location of the property. You can see that in red. And this map is roughly half-a-mile radius. Now, in that half-mile radius, I have pulled up through GIS, and I have noted 22 total roads that extend beyond the current code, 11 of which are larger than what we're requesting here. One is roughly the same in terms of distance. We have distances as long as 975 feet. Now, I do recognize that these also include apartment complexes, and I also went and looked at apartment complexes not in this area, and I picked 3 at random, and I found that from the nearest road to the unit is 200 feet away from where a fire truck can park. So with our road, a fire truck can go in straight. It is a straight road. They have access to get close to the units. Next, please. Oh, let me actually talk a little bit more on that then. So I have spoken with DeKalb Fire, and one of our proposals is to add sprinkler system in the townhouses. With that, They've recommended a 26-foot road, and they believe, it is not approved, but they believe that that could suffice requirements in terms of the road length. I do want to point out, this is not part of the presentation, just came across this. I am in conversations with a property beside this, and if we can create a deal together, then I am happy to include a cul-de-sac as illustrated here on that property. Obviously, that's not up for today, but I wanted to make sure that that was made aware. Now, in this, why I believe this should be approved is we need townhouses. It says it in the comprehensive plan. A few of these slides are all going to be the comprehensive plan, which specifically states that we need more diverse mixed housing types and classes. Right now, there is almost 56% of renter-occupied properties. A large portion of current living in Chamblee is apartments. And you can see with the comprehensive plan, we need diversity. We need to address the mixed middle class. And these are all highlighted here. If we can go to the next slide, please. Next, also highlighted once again here, multiple times within the comprehensive plan, that we need the diversity, we need the mixed middle, we want affordability. The way to get affordable housing is through two parts. You need density and you need home ownership. Apartment complexes don't solve those. We need townhouses that can provide ownership for individuals. Next slide, please. Here's an example. I just went to apartments.com. All I put in was Chamblee as a search, and you can see right over here, there's currently 463 rentals available right now. This is just, all I did was go on there and screenshot this. We have a lot of apartments. I'm not knocking the previous applicant here, but it doesn't address the corresponding, the comprehensive plan here, which is to have home ownership, which is to have the mixed middle class. So you can see here on that screenshot, a 3-bedroom is renting for $39.63 a month. We need townhouses in the community, and there's very few parcels available to be able to create that. Next slide, please. You see this also, once again, comprehensive plan, indicating here that we need medium density residential. Next slide. This is a Buford corridor. We are on the cusp of that, and we actually sit within this corridor, the residential corridor, which also states that we need medium density residential, future land use. They say it right here on the second line. They're looking for medium density residential, and that's what we provide here. So everything with this plan is trying to provide Chamblee with literally what they have indicated in the comprehensive plan as being missing. Next slide, please. And you can see here of what is allowed through zoning. So if it is not me or somebody like me that is trying to build townhomes, the only other option is to acquire more property and to build yet another large apartment complex, which does not meet the comprehensive plan. We are not addressing that missing middle class, the affordability through home ownership, and the diversity of housing types. Next slide, please. And once again, through here, this states all the same things. Supplying, we need the supply of housing, so we need density, we need home ownership, and we need the missing middle. Next slide, please. And that is all. Thank you. I yield my time.
26 seconds left. If anyone wishes to speak in favor of this item. All right. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Mayor and council, my name is George Lloyd. I live across the street from this property at 2154 Deering Circle. I prepared this little list of things, and I'm going to try to modify it on the run because I don't want to repeat a lot of facts that have already been stated. But me and some of my neighbors, my cohort of neighbors, raise your hands, thank you, all oppose this development. We think the scale and density is out of step with the neighborhood. We have no problem with the village, following the village residential requirements in zoning, but we think this is beyond that. Let's see, I'm going to try to leave out some stuff here. Our main concerns are with the density of the development. It appears to us, because there's quite a few trees in the back and on the east side of the property and on the street front, it appears that all these large trees are going to go away, which will affect the abundant wildlife that we have in our area and enjoy. We also are concerned about, the trash sanitation, trash pickup. Are we going to have 13 trash and recycle bins on the front of this property every trash day? Because it's not very wide. Is there going to be a sanitation truck going up this narrow driveway that has no cul-de-sac or turnaround? And what about the sewage hookup for 13 additional units on where there was one property, one house? We've had a history of sewage problems and runoff problems over the years. So we are curious of how all this will be affected. Hold on. We're also very concerned about the reduction of the buffer zones, going 30 feet on the 3 neighborhood residential properties to 0 buffer. Also a reduction of the 20%, because of this many townhomes, they're required to have 20% open area, and they're going to 0. So as a result, it's mostly going to be impermeable surfaces in that property, and it's on a hill. There's going to be a lot of runoff, and it goes straight down to the street, which in years past, not recently, but we've had a problem with flooding. The DeKalb County has come out several times to rework the storm drainage and some sewage problems. Okay, I'm jumping through this, so I'm probably left out some things, but I'd also like to say, I make some comments about the applicant's letter of intent that was included with the proposal. They claim that their project is confronted with extraordinary and exceptional conditions because of the small and narrow property. They also claim that they're enduring unnecessary hardship because of the village residential code requirements. And they also claim that the problems they're having are not a result of the actions by the property owner, but the size, shape, and zoning. And this is key. The size, shape, and zoning are long-standing conditions that predate the proposed development. To me and my neighbors, this says that the developers are telling us that they were aware of the property limitations and they are aware of the code requirements, and yet they proceeded to create a plan that was unsuitable and impractical for this site. And I want to emphasize, we're not against building something there that conforms to village residential, but we just feel like this is beyond that, and they want to reduce the project to fit the property. I don't think you'd have a problem with the neighbors. And so my final shebang here is they are requesting relief from you so they can build their project. And we, as Chamblee residents and neighbors of this property, are counting on you guys to uphold the zoning codes and the city planning to preserve our residential neighborhood. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this item?
My name is Mark Shields, John Mark Shields legally. I have the largest border with the proposed development. I own 2153 to the west. I first heard about this when I got this in the mail a little over a week ago. So I was a little bit surprised by this and actually a little bit panicked about it because of the expected impact on the value of my piece of land. I have been out of the country for the majority of the time since I bought it. I bought it in 2004. I'm a U.S. diplomat. And the person who is living next to where that road will go up next to those townhouses and whose windows will be looking out over that drop-off has been there longer than I've owned it. A solid citizen and neighbor. So kind of speaking for them in a bit. But I think it's pretty clear that this property had this shape before the development plan came to light. And so I completely agree with George, who I think spoke before me, that the ordinances are written to be followed. Exceptions are appropriate when they are moderate, when people agree, when it addresses the common interests of the community. That's what I would tend to think. I think good points were made by Brent about the need for some middle sector housing. You know this much better than I do. But that's, I think, a good argument. But I think so is the argument that the density proposed is too high, and it's imposed restrictions that make it hard to meet the ordinances of your city, upon which the neighbors to the east, the NR1 zoned neighbors, have depended actually and enjoy as members of this community of long standing. And so one weighs a little bit against the long-standing members of the community against new needs for a developing and growing community. And that's a hard calculation because it's apples and oranges. And so I'm wearing my former diplomatic hat. And because I own the lot next, I can propose something that no one else can, and that is possibly a middle way. I think the lot to be developed in a way that's conforming with ordinances, it should be a little bit wider. I mean, that's what everyone has been speaking to. And if the developer chose to purchase this lot, and I'm not in a position of trying to exploit or extort a price, so we've already discussed and agreed on a price, that perhaps a different proposal would meet the community, the neighborhood, the neighbors' needs better, and still provide an interesting proposition for the developer. So that's what I think is kind of a middle way. And, but as it stands, I think I would have to oppose this proposition. Thank you.
About a minute left. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Sir, did you want to use your remaining 26 seconds?
I'll just say this, is that in terms of the tree density, when it was designed to try to keep as many trees as possible, you can see that on the drawings there, and we are trying to do a little bit wider road to meet the fire marshal's requirements.
All right. Again, these items do come back up later in the agenda. Council may or may not have questions at that time. Move down to the next item, which is 3663 Claremont Road.
Right. So this application, I will be brief because it is very straightforward. It would not be variance night in Chamblee if we did not have a dumpster variance in front of council. So this property is requesting a variance to allow a dumpster and its enclosure to be located in the front yard where otherwise prohibited. As you can see from this site rendering, the property has an irregular shape and the existing building placement limits accessibility to the rear of the building. To service the dumpster, the dump truck would need a minimum of 11 feet 6 inches. However, the site is constrained by a single 9-foot width passage at the rear of the site. Here you can see the current dumpster location, although sans a compliant enclosure, and then to the right, the access to the rear of the lot. This is the site plan for the property. I would note that while the dumpster is located in what most would consider a side yard, that because it is between a portion of the building and the street, technically it's a front yard. The access path is clearly shown along with the sketch of what the proposed dumpster enclosure would be. I would note that they are proposing brick veneer with a gate on it. Because of the site constraints that would prevent the dumpster from being placed in a compliant location, staff would recommend approval of the request without conditions.
Thank you, sir. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item?
Do have a presentation, if we can open.
Name, sir.
My name is Nathaniel Well. I'm here representing Wellborn Development LLC, the commercial property owners located at 3663 Claremore Road. We're here to present our variance application for the council and the mayor. So, to go through the overview, we are requesting a variance to locate the dumpster enclosure to be located on the front yard of the property instead of the rear side of the property, which is required by the city of Chambly. The proposed location should be on the side yard of the property for the objectives of improving functionality, safety, and site efficiency. We do know the existing code requirements by the city of Chambly are all dumpster enclosures needs to be located at the rear of the property, and we do know the intent of this code is to minimize visual impacts from the public right-of-way, to maintain aesthetic standards, and to ensure compatibility with surrounding properties. And we're proposing to put this dumpster enclosure on the side of the property by screening it with 6 to 8 foot opaque fence and landscaping buffers, as this location minimizes operational conflicts, and this location will improve accessibility for service vehicles such as emergency vehicles and garbage collection vehicles. And the justification for our variance is the site constraints, which is not self-imposed. This is a grandfather property built in the late years of 1950s, and this site has it only have a 9-foot wide passage to the rear side of the property, while most garbage trucks require a minimum of 11-foot wide passage. So this creates a circulation conflict, and we're proposing to put the dumpster on the side of the property, which is actually going to improve the fire lane access and any kind of emergency access by not blocking any parking spaces on the property. And it's also going to reduce impacts on the neighboring properties. So this hardship condition is unique to this lot, to this property lot, and this is caused due to the building footprint. Like I said before, this is a grandfather property, and it only have a 9-foot wide passage as a single-way passage towards the rear of the property. So putting the dumpster enclosure on the side location is necessary for reasonable property use. And like I said before, this is not self-imposed, and this is totally based on existing site conditions. So the mitigation measures that we are planning to do is to put it in an architectural grade opaque fencing. We're going to build a brick enclosure for the dumpster, which will simulate with the building's material, which is actually brick. And we're going to use landscaping buffers along the visible edges, and this enclosure will be gated with controlled access. And it also will comply with sanitation and fire safety codes. We have done some impact analysis for this, and there is going to be no impact for adjacent properties. It will maintain visual screening from the street view. It will improve internet side circulations for all garbage trucks and any kind of emergency trucks going through the property, and this will also enhance overall site safety. So our conclusion is we're proposing to put the dumpster enclosure on the side of the property instead of the back, which is actually required by the city. This will improve site functionality as well and safety of all our clients that's going to use this property. And this enclosure will be adequately screened and aesthetically compliant. So this is, as you can see it on the picture, with the radar road, that's the only way that anybody can go to the rear of the property, and that's only 9 foot wide. So dumpster, garbage collecting trucks cannot pass through this narrow, wide passage. So on this picture, as you can see with the red rectangle on the side of the property, that's the place we're proposing to put our dumpster enclosure. And this is our application. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? All right, seeing none, we'll move to the next item. It's 5037 Peachtree Road.
5037 Peachtree Road. This is a 14-unit multifamily building with 19 surface parking spaces. There are several variances. Apologize, I will read through them. To increase the maximum impervious surface coverage from 80% to 88%, to reduce the open space requirement from 10% to 3.5%, to allow residential uses on the ground floor 17 feet from a public street instead of the required 100 feet, and to not require the ground floor to be wrapped and concealed by active uses. To reduce the minimum 60% balcony requirement to 0%, to allow facades that are not broken up vertically and horizontally through building material and offsets, to allow roof line without variation, to allow bicycle parking spaces to not be located within the supplemental zone, to reduce the minimum 5-foot setback for dumpster and recycling location enclosure to 2.5 feet, to reduce the minimum on-site parking requirement from 18 spaces to 4 spaces, and a waiver to reduce the required 5-foot landscape zone width to 3 feet. They're also requesting waivers to reduce the required 10-foot sidewalk to 5 feet, to reduce the 5 to 10-foot supplemental zone to 0 feet, to reduce the tree density requirement from 12.9 inches to 8 inches diameter at breast height, to reduce the 125-foot driveway spacing requirement to 58 feet, and to not plant shrubbery within the landscape zone. So here you can see the site is located the southeast of the Peachtree Station Shopping Center, southwest of the Chambly Village Shopping Center, and is adjacent to the Peachtree Road rail trail access point. This is on the south block face of Peachtree Road. The site currently does not contain a compliant streetscape and contains curb cuts which are wider than would be permitted under the current UDO. The existing structure and site infrastructure would be removed as part of the proposal and would be replaced with the new building and driveway. This is the rear yard of the property facing towards the railroad. As part of the proposal, the applicant has secured a lease agreement to place parking on railroad right-of-way, which I will bring up later in this presentation. The existing site plan shows the lot as it currently configured. I note the narrow width and overall small size of the property, which make it a challenging site to develop. For the variance and waivers, staff are supporting. This is the primary hardship driving those recommendations. The proposed site would consist of the existing property as well as a portion of the Norfolk Southern right-of-way, which the applicant has secured an easement for. Remember, I mentioned that earlier. Spoiler alert, we're talking about it now. The easement area would include 15 parking spaces as well as the residential recycling and trash dumpster. I note that this easement is not permanent, and as currently written, the easement could be revoked by the railroad, which would cause the property to lose access to the parking area they are proposing, as well as access to the parking spaces they are providing on the site that they do own. Elevations show the structure would be clad with stone and brick and would contain a hipped roof. I'll note that the variance requests related to the architectural articulation of the roof line and facade are not supported by staff. In general, it's difficult to argue that architectural items on a facade of a building are not possible or are impractical due to lot size, shape, or topography. Additionally, approval of these requests would create a structure that is substantially more visually bulky and imposing than the UDO intends. As such, staff has historically not supported these requests. Similarly, staff is not supporting the waiver requests related to reducing the tree density and not providing sufficient landscaping in the landscape zone. For tree density, the UDO offers alternate methods of compliance that should be exhausted before a waiver is considered, and staff also finds that site constraints do not limit the ability to plant in the landscape zone. That is a design choice. Here you can see the interior layout of the units and get a general feel for how it would function. There are two units located on the first floor, with the 3 remaining floors containing 4 units each. This would total 14 units. So staff is recommending denial of variances 5, 6, and 8, and waivers 4 and 6. Variance 5 being the variance to not require facades to be broken up vertically and horizontally, to not require roof lines to be varied, to allow a reduction in the minimum 5-foot setback to 2.5 feet for the dumpster and recycling location. That is due to it being on a neighboring property and not subject to this requirement as written. To reduce the tree density requirement from 12.9 inches to 8 inches diameter at breast height, and to not plant shrubbery within the landscape zone. We are recommending approval of all other variances, including 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 9, and waivers 1, 2, 3, and 5. Staff would ask that council condition any approval upon the site plan received March 6, 2026, as revised to reflect the denied variances and waivers, and subject to any additional revisions required by conditions of approval or the UDO. And second condition, that the development provide Juliet balconies for a minimum of 60% of the units.
Thank you, sir. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item?
Buddy, name's Moiz Hasni. I'm representing the project, The Junction at Chamblee. As you guys saw the preview, this lot is very, very small, and we have done our best to fit everything that we can. As of yesterday, we received a denial for some of the variances and waivers, and we went back to the drawing board, and I think we can pretty much accomplish everything that has been denied and resubmit the new site plan to get what is done, get done what's needed. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have or concerns. Okay.
That comes back up later. Maybe there'll be questions at that time.
Sure.
Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Sandra Slaughter. I reside at 5125 Peachtree Road in Chamblee. I have been a resident for 17 years within the next 2 months in July. I want to speak in opposition, and I also represent the board. I'm a board member of Chalfont on Peachtree. And we have basically 4 issues. I have submitted this memorandum, a copy of it, to the city clerk. And this memorandum on behalf of our community to formally oppose the proposed 4-story, 14-unit, multi-family rental building currently under review by the City of Chamblee, by the City of Chamblee Planning and Developmental Department. As described in the project's plans, the development would include 19 off-site surface parking spaces and a commercial dumpster located in the rear of the property. After a review of the project plans and associated applications, the Chalfont Board has identified 4 areas of concern: the inadequacy of the site to support the proposed density, the number of variances and waivers being sought, the parking deficit and its downstream impact on surrounding businesses and residences, and the likely negative effect on neighborhood character and property values. We respectfully urge the department to deny the applications in their current form. 4 factors. Number 1, site inadequacy and excessive variance request. The project as proposed requires 9 variances and 6 waivers, an extraordinary level of regulatory relief that signals in the clearest terms that the proposed development is fundamentally incompatible with the size of the site. Number 2, traffic impact on an already strained corridor. The surrounding road network is already operating at or beyond capacity during peak hours. The addition of 14 residential units, each potentially generate multiple vehicle trips per day, will place further strain on a corridor that residents and commuters already find difficult to navigate during peak hours. Number 3, parking deficit and impact on surrounding properties. The project proposes 19 off-site parking spaces to serve 14 residential units. Off-site parking arrangements are inherently less reliable than on-site provisions, as access can be subject to change, enforcement challenges, and competing demand. This ratio and configuration are plainly insufficient and will create ongoing pressure on street parking in the immediate vicinity. The Chalfont Board is particularly concerned about the following impacts. Street parking directly in front of our community's property is at risk of being permanently occupied by residents of the proposed development who cannot park on site. The inadequate parking ratio, combined with the traffic constraints noted above, creates a situation where the development's density is simply not supportable by the surrounding infrastructure. And number 4, lastly, is that the neighborhood character and property values are of utmost importance. High-density developments that strain local infrastructure and fail to meet standard design criteria have a well-documented history of depressing neighboring property values. The Chalfont Board asks the department to weigh this impact carefully in its deliberations. And in conclusion, the Chalfont HOA Board respectfully requests that the City of Chamblee Planning and Development Department deny the variance and waiver applications associated with this project in their current form. The number and scope of regulatory departures being sought, combined with the documented traffic and parking challenges in this area, make clear that the proposed development is not appropriate for this site at the proposed density. Should the applicant wish to pursue development of this parcel, the Chalfont Board encourages the city to require a revised proposal that complies with all applicable development standards and provides an adequate parking supply and is designed at a scale that is genuinely compatible with the site and the surrounding neighborhoods. And we respectfully submit this and thank you, City Council, for your time.
Slaughter.
My name's Tim Carroll. I live at 5097 Peachtree Road, known as the Cannery. Me and the residents there, after discussion, we do wish to oppose the waivers and the variances. We're really concerned about the parking. Parking is already highly restrained. We have a lot of vehicles coming into our private lot because of the development around. I'd just like to make sure that any development there has suitable parking that they need, and these are two-bedroom apartments and with only 19 spaces, and would also like to maintain the vision that Chamblee has for how the development should look there. But thank you very much.
Hey, I'll be very quick. My name is Jack Joyner. I live at 5151 Peachtree Road. This area, like Sandra's already said, is very congested. Actually, on Peachtree Road, from Peachtree Boulevard up to the MARTA station, it's really a fast track where people is using it as a cut-through to go to the east side of town. We only have one stop sign between Peachtree Boulevard and the MARTA station, whereas on this side, you got over a half a dozen stop signs that slows people down. The 14 units, I got 2 cars and I got one place, but if you think about 14 units, 2 bedrooms, I mean, if a husband, a wife, or a child, I mean, that's 3 cars right there. And you don't have the space for the parking there. Also, the garage that you saw what they're on the photo, you got 2 handicap spots and you got 2 spots that's probably going to go to the people who works in the leasing office. So basically, you're knocking it down from 19 spaces to 14 spaces. And then you need to think about where in the world is the delivery people going to go? Where is your service people going to go? Gas, water, light, electricity, whatever. Where are they going to park at? Are we going to allow them to park on the street and hold up traffic already as it is? I mean, it's dangerous for us to come out of our unit already. We've already had several accidents. That block in the box does not help us at all. And then we're going to add more traffic, and then where's these people going to, where are they going to, how are they going to help us out? And also, why all the variants? You know, why have variances if we're going to go ahead and approve variances? The variances there are put there for a reason, to help Chamblee and make Chamblee develop and look good for the city. Why in the world do we need to keep going on and granting all these variances that's going to reduce things down? You hardly ever see anybody that wants to make something better or go beyond the minimum standards. That's all I have to say. Thank you. And I'm totally not for this. Thank you.
34 seconds.
Ronnie Mayer, Brookhaven, y'all need to put a pause and assess all these apartments. With all due respect to the mayor, last meeting, you told everybody if you want to live in Chamblee, you're going to make them able to live in Chamblee. Well, y'all's idea of doing the beautiful streetscapes, they're beautiful, they're gorgeous, but they're not practical. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, there's no way if somebody's having a heart attack, they're going to die. You can get an ambulance there, a fire truck, even the Chamblee squad car.
We're at time. Okay, Ronnie, we're at time.
What?
We're out of time.
You're not going to let me have an extra minute?
We'll let you come back up at citizen comment.
This is a very important issue in Chamblee, home ownership.
Hi, my name is Julian Marie. I
Mr. Mayor, we're at time.
currently occupy 5037 Peachtree Road as a gym owner.
We're out of time on this item.
Okay, but I occupy that for the past 4 years, and this would greatly affect me as well as the elderlies and middle-aged clients that I service there as a
Yes, sir, I understand, but we have protocol. We are out of time on this item. If you want to stick around at the end of this meeting, there's time then that you can come back up and talk to us, but we're out of time on this item.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I will note that the applicant has 9 minutes left if they wish to.
Sir, did you wish
respond.
to speak in rebuttal to any of this item? You have a few minutes left.
And everybody has is a parking, but we do meet all the requirements according to the zoning that's out there, village zoning. And you got to keep in mind, envisioned this project to work with the MARTA station that is right next door to us. So we're, it's not just, people are not just gonna have two cars. A lot of people are gonna travel through MARTA. They're gonna use public parking around there, and it kind of meets the same vision as everything else. There's nothing new that's coming around here. There's apartments all over the place. We're trying to just fit into the same projects that are around there. We're not introducing anything new. We got enough parking, I think that's the biggest concern people have now. As far as the design aspect of it, we're willing to design as whatever the city requires. I think that's about it. The parking was the biggest issue, but we do meet all the requirements that are there in the zoning. Thank you.
That'll take us down to 3478 Hilden Circle.
Okay, lightning round. 3478 Hilden Circle. This is an existing addition to an existing structure that requires a variance to allow the front porch to encroach 8.6 feet into the front yard as opposed to 6 feet. So here you can see the subject property located on Hilden Circle just south of Keswick Park. The property is undergoing a properly permitted, I would add, a renovation of the property. As part of that, the applicant's proposing to replace the front porch. Because this is technically an addition to the house, the infill requirements for contextual front yard setback apply. This augments the compliant front yard setback range to between 36.2 feet and 40 feet. I'd note that this request started out as an administrative variance request. However, as it deals with the amount a porch is allowed to encroach into the setback rather than the setback itself, staff determined that we did not have the ability to review that through an administrative variance. So there are several conflicting requirements at play with this project. Firstly, the UDO requires porches on single-family residential properties to be at least 6 feet deep and 8 feet wide. Secondly, the UDO permits porches to encroach in the front yard setback no more than 6 feet. Thirdly, the UDO considers porch steps to be part of the porch itself and therefore subject to the 6-foot encroachment limit. And lastly, building code requirements for porch steps have standard tread height and depth, tread depth and riser height requirements. In this situation, it would not be possible for the project to meet all of these requirements, as in order to build a porch that complies with the UDO's dimensional requirements that also contains a code compliant steps, the porch and steps must encroach into the front yard approximately 8 feet and 8 inches. So because of these constraints, staff finds that the proposal meets the criteria for granting a variance and would recommend approval of the variance as submitted.
Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Come on up. If you'll tell us your name and address, please.
My name is Jordan Gill. I'm here on behalf of my firm and architecture and our clients, John and Sherry Kelly back there. I thought Matt did a great job summarizing what our variance request is for. I just wanted to emphasize that our proposed design actually decreases the existing encroachment by 1.1 feet. The current steps are actually a lot deeper and further into the encroachment than what we are proposing. So we're actually improving the situation. And we come up here with staff approval, which we greatly appreciate. And yeah, that pretty much sums up everything. Thank you so much for your time, and we politely request your approval.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Very good. Next item is 2259 Lawson Way.
All right, after this, I promise I'll sit down and won't get back up for a while.
Counting on
So the applicant is requesting 3 variances. The first, to allow an accessory structure to be located closer to the street than the principal building, to reduce the 5-foot side yard setback for an accessory structure to 0 feet, and to reduce the 5-foot east side yard setback for an accessory structure to 2.9 feet. Subject property is located on the south block face of Lawson Way, west of the intersection with North Peachtree Road. In November 2025, the present owner received a code enforcement violation for the construction of the carport without the required permit. These photos show the carport that was constructed along with the accessory structure, which was also constructed without a permit. Staff finds the specific site constraints, such as the location of existing improvements, such as the primary residence, which reduces the functional placement for the proposed carport and shed to be the primary hardships driving our recommendation of support. I would also note that Bill Goldberg, our new chief building official, has informed us that a 0-foot setback for the carport would not be an issue from a building or fire code perspective, provided that the roof eaves do not protrude more than 4 inches and that they are also fire rated, fire treated, or constructed of heavy timbers. I believe the first two of those are probably more realistic. These requirements would supersede any action by council and would need to be verified by the Department of Planning and Community Development as part of the permitting process for the carport, should council approve these variances. So staff is recommending approval of the request due to the hardships I laid out earlier. The only condition we would add is that the site be in substantial conformance with the survey received by the Planning and Development Department on March 20th, 2026.
Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item?
Mayor and City Council members, my name is Stephanie Liu. I'm the homeowner of 2259 Lawson Way. Thank you for taking the time to consider my request. I'm here tonight requesting a variance related to the setback of the 2 small accessory structures on my property, the carport and the storage shed. So this is my first home I purchased 4 years ago in the city of Chamblee, and at the time I didn't have a garage, and so these structures were built to meet basic residential needs. So protecting my car from the weather as well as a large tree over my property. The storage shed provides the ability to store lawn and household equipment. The placement of the structures were influenced by the topography of the lot, existing tree coverage, as well as the location of the house itself. I made efforts to minimize grading and disturbance and to keep the structures modest in size and residential in character. These structures do not negatively impact neighboring properties or the public. The storage shed is behind a fence and not visible from the street and has no windows or doors facing any of the adjacent properties. The carport is visible but remains consistent with the residential character of the neighborhood. Also, I made sure to ensure that there were gutters installed to the carport so that there was no water coming off the roof of it to go into my neighbor's property, but instead drain into my own. No concerns or objections have been raised by any of my neighboring owners, and in fact, they actually have been very supportive and reflected in the 4 letters I've submitted on behalf of them in the supporting documents. One neighbor, Mr. Ronnie Mayer, is here, also in support. Requiring removal or relocation of the structures would create a significant financial hardship without providing any corresponding public benefit. So granting this waiver would allow the continued reasonable use of my property. I want to emphasize that I do respect the city's regulations and am committed to full compliance with all zoning and permitting requirements for any future improvements. Thank you again for your time and your consideration.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
I'm Ronnie Mayer, and I own the 2 properties to the left of her home. The carport, the shed in the back was hauled in, it wasn't constructed. I feel guilty because I applied for a fence permit. And if I hadn't applied for the fence permit, it'd have been there. I feel she ought to be grandfathered in because it's been there already for 2 years. I have a picture here, you might not like to see it, but that's what our code enforcement looks like when they come down Lawson Way. A majority of the homes there is harassment. We got into it last time. I'm not going to get into it anymore, but the business people, you want us to help support the city, but her other neighbor on the other side, they moved. They're done. No police protection on Lawson Way, 0. But we have code enforcement all the time, 3 times a day sometimes. And I feel sorry for Ms. Liu. I feel sorry for her because If I hadn't put my new fence up, nobody would have ever called it. But now, since I put the fence up, she had to pay $700, and she has to go. She's scared to death. She's ready to move, and I don't want her to move. So please ensure her that she'll be okay and pass this, because it's not right. She wants to live in this city, and no police protection. The people next door just moved. They got 2 kids with no police protection. I don't want you to shoot radar, just a police car a couple times a day, just to make sure our properties are safe. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this item? All right, seeing none, we'll let you rest a minute, Matt. We had 3 sets of minutes. Anybody see anything that needed to be changed? We good on the minutes? We have a second read under alcohol for Tuesday. We have under new business a resolution. This is the City of Milton support.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a follow-up resolution to authorize participation in an amicus brief in the Chang versus City of Milton case. As you know, that's been an ongoing case for quite some time. It went all the way up to the Georgia Supreme Court. The Georgia Supreme Court batted it down, and it is now back in front of the state appellate courts. And so the City of Milton and the kind of network of cities are requesting authorization of participation in the amicus brief so that they can show that the cities are all in alignment on this issue, specifically the question of sovereign immunity with personal injury cases. I'm not going to go too far into the weeds of trying to tell you the legalese in the resolution. You can read it yourself, but that's essentially the gist of it.
Any questions from council on that item? All right, that'll move us down to staff action items. We have an update on the park bond project specific to Wood Acres.
Yes, Matt Dunnigan is going to present on this one.
Matt Dunnigan, come on.
Mayor and council for having me up tonight. As you can see on your screen, this is the Wood Acres Park. This project started with a concept phase and a public engagement portion. There was 2 public engagement meetings where feedback was received from the community for this parcel. And the two main drivers for the park was to find a non-vehicular access and keep it very natural. And so, consistent with that theme, the concept was made. Yep. Here, and this was what was put in front of, I think, council in 2025 to be moved to design. This showed a concrete path coming down from Claremont Terrace, leading down to the park. This would be concrete because this would ultimately be part of the Peachtree Creek Greenway as part of the proposed trail through the city of Chamblee. Then an aggregate path would come off of that and provide an area inside the existing wooded area with some black locust palisades, some tree cookie pavers, some meadow plantings, and some additional reforestation of the area. This is part of the concept plan that was presented. This was some of the features that we discussed and were proposed for the park. The total cost estimate for the park was approximately $400,000. We have since moved the project into design and are approximately at the 60% design stage, moving towards the 90% design stage for this park. As you can see here on the plan on the screen, shows the concrete path coming from Claremont Terrace into the park. We also included a bridge over to Wood Acres to provide pedestrian access to Wood Acres. And then that concrete path would continue on into the area and be able to be connected to in future phases of the Peachtree Creek Greenway. landscaping along the path, and then the off-path features there with the cookie pavers and the black palisades and additional plantings through that area. These are a few of the features: the cookie pavers, the old rail car bridge, aggregate stone, the black locust palisades, some of the proposed trees, all native to the state of Georgia in this area. Some of the shrubs, all also native to this area, native to Georgia in the shaded area that we planted into. And then some wetland plantings to be planted around the stream and the disturbed areas there to help make sure everything is stabilized. This project currently is on schedule. We no longer need a EPD buffer variance due to the exemption for pedestrian bridges. We're able to stay out of those buffers, and so, like I said, we are moving close to 90% design, which will turn into the city at the end of the month. And then we'll go through city review and then move into bid and construction. Do you have any questions?
Questions from council?
Actually, I have a couple of questions, and I think this is a beautiful plan, and I love the use of the wood and all that kind of stuff.
They're basically cookie tree pavers. They're cuttings of wood. Instead of using stone, we were trying to use more natural materials. They're expected to last 15 to 20 years. They're fire kiln dried. Yeah, they actually come from a company here in Atlanta, the Atlanta Wood Foundation, and the city can actually donate trees to them and get a credit back as well. So any trees that have to come down for another project, we can donate towards the Atlanta Wood Foundation and use those trees or pay into the fund with new trees. Yeah, so we're not there's no longer a wood log path. We didn't want to impact that area. It would encroach too far into the 25 and 50-foot stream buffer. We do have the black palisades, which will last much longer because they don't interact and they're not touching they're not touching the ground. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Matt, for the section coming out from Claremont Terrace into the property, there's some pretty significant grade change there, and there's some pretty steep banks on both sides right now. What's the planning for stabilizing that area?
Plan to vegetate those
Sorry if I
areas.
missed it.
So the concrete path will come in, basically following that existing gravel path, staying pretty close to grade, and then we'll vegetate the sides with new landscaping to help stabilize them, and there'll be a little bit of a swell that goes down through there to convey the stormwater as well.
Yeah.
Well, how soon, but
How soon, Matt?
Well, I said we should be ready to move to the bid phase here in July and start construction in September and be completed by the end of the year.
All right, that takes us down to Peachtree Road, the engineering agreement.
Yes, I am excited to announce that we, after many years, have finally gotten to the point where we are ready to execute an agreement with Georgia Power to bury the power poles on Broad Street. And so this is just for everybody's knowledge. This is a process that was started in 2022, and it has actually taken that long to get to this point. And so we are asking for the approval of the preliminary engineering agreement so that we can go ahead and pay Georgia Power the remaining $704,796.34 to go ahead and do that work. It will go in conjunction with the streetscape project and the other utility lines. Part of the reason why this is just not coming in front of you when we got it in January is because we had to coordinate with AT&T and Comcast to make sure everybody was on the same page, on the same timeline. And so we are ready to move forward with this and asking for your approval tonight.
Any questions on this item? Very good. All right, that'll take us back down to our, the items we started with, and this is 1901, 1900 Century Boulevard. Questions from council for the applicant or staff?
I'm actually good. If the applicant's going to be asking for a deferral next week, I'm not sure our time is best used to dig into this plan right now.
I agree. 2145 Deering. Questions from council. This is the townhome community.
Leslie, you want to start? Or you want me to start?
Okay. Yeah, I'll go ahead and go first. You presented us with a sketch
Come on
of
up.
something that could possibly occur in the future, and I would not want to base my choice whether or not to grant you waivers and variances with thinking that that's something on the table, but it's not in the design, it's not in the purchase the property phase, it's not in the permitting phase or anything like that. So I would either say that that really can't be considered, or you may want to consider a deferral so that you can quantify all of that so that it becomes part of the record and part of what we vote on. Just saying.
Is that a question?
No, that.
Okay.
Statement.
It was a, would you be willing to do that? Question.
Well, I would like at least, hopefully, if we can have some clarity on the direction that we possibly could go. What is the council open to? If we can get at least some clarity with that, as obviously that deal may or may not work out. I can't control all of that. If it doesn't work out, what can we move forward with? And as long as we have some direction, I'm happy to defer so that we can get some of these things addressed. I do believe that at the current setup, a lot of things are addressed as well, though. Yes, ma'am.
So, like, I have a concern about the dead end, the narrowness and the dead end nature. I've done a couple ride-alongs with our sanitation folks, and we've got a small truck, but I can't turn around. I can't turn around in that without backing up somebody's driveway. And there's another development just west of there that when we did the ride-along, that was difficult enough, but it had an in and out because all the trash cans and recycle bins were basically on the sidewalk because the sidewalk was small, the supplement zones, that was really small. Yeah, so that's my biggest thing is just access for that.
So you said at our comp plan, our recently updated comp plan, talking about the missing middle portion, which I'm very familiar with. I think I put most of those things in there. There are other options beyond townhomes. Have you considered any of those? Duplex, triplex, cottage cluster, things that are going to be a less intensive use directly next to an R1 neighborhood?
I've looked at numerous different things. I started this project with what can make the most sense. And a lot of those items are just off the table because of economics. It's just basic money in, money out math, nothing more than that. When you take, for example, if you take the current property as it is now and just renovated it and kept it as a duplex, it would lose money, literally. Now, trying to do cluster homes and so forth, and trying to keep within the same zoning, we're in the same kind of conversation that we have now if we have that buffer zone. So we'd still need to do a buffer at that point. And if we're going to go beyond the buffer, what's the difference between a townhouse and a cluster house? But I also believe, once again, looking at the economics of it, cost of acquisition, cost of site development, and then cost of construction, and then also the market itself, where does that land? I've looked at all those options, and I've tried to come up with something here that addresses the market, addresses the needs of the city, and is a nice project. I've had And no, this is not actually contracted, but I've had 6 potential purchasers of units. Whether they'll go through with it is a whole other thing, which is why I didn't present that. But I say that to your question here is, from what I've put together, it seems like there is a lot of desirability of residents, new residents that want that project.
I would say the difference between townhomes and cottage clusters is generally scale. Okay, I've been watching development around Atlanta for almost 30 years, and the thing that was pointed out to me when I got here from one of the bigger realtors to now, if you can't build to meet the price that they're selling it for, then they're asking too much. And the reality is, if the asking price is that high and the only way that this thing pencils is 13 townhomes, then their asking price is too high and it's going to sit. And we unfortunately have a number of examples of property like that all over the metro. The idea that I've seen that has worked across the area for many years is that the idea of step-down zoning, where, at the other end of the street, you've got the commercial Beaufort Highway, you have a townhome development going over to, Deering Place, where you've got an R1. So what are the logical steps in there? Understanding if the current property owners don't want to see it that way and are expecting a certain number, that's out of everyone's control. And that's at, their potential loss. Unless someone does an assemblage, in which case then the buffer issue gets fixed. I'm not saying that, going into the buffer is off the table, because there are times and places to do it, but to stack what's effectively a 3-story townhouse, a 0 line, overlooking an R1 is a tough sell. So again, that's where the question of scale, if does 3 duplexes or 4 duplexes put in there, or a cottage cluster setting or triplex, whatever it is, make a better use of the space without being this jarring change from the NR1 over to the commercial side. So that's the challenge. The other part I have, and again with the road, sanitation is an issue, fire is an issue, but just every single UPS, FedEx, Amazon delivery truck, I see a lot of scraped up vehicles trying to get in and out of there with a single line in, single line out. Your retaining wall is going to take a beating. Just looking at the general condition of delivery trucks and how the drivers handle them, as someone living there, I'd be concerned about having to leave my car out on the driveway for something with those trucks going in and out. The other one, your driveways are 18 feet. That's pretty shallow. My personal vehicle is 21 feet just because it's a big-ass truck. Excuse my language, I'm sorry. So you start getting into larger SUVs and things like that, they're going to have a challenge getting in and out of the driveways, would be my concern. So you're working in a very tight envelope, and I admire the thought that's going into it. I just have to question whether it's trying to squeeze a little too hard.
Yeah, I understand that concern. I've looked at all that, 'cause as you talk about the buffer and you want some separation there, well, you can solve the driveway just by pushing that farther back, closer to the line. As of right now, I mean, we're nowhere near exactly on the line. We're not on a 0 lot. I tried to push that forward as much as reasonably can so that it can have some separation there. There can be some yard. I've tried to give as much consideration towards all the aspects that you mentioned as we possibly could. I wish the lot was bigger. I wish that we had availability to have large lots. That's why a lot of people do assemblages, and do we try to make our lots work? This lot was drawn up, 1960 something? I'm not sure the exact year, right? How do we make a lot work, or do we make everything assemblages where we just build apartment complexes? I don't have all the answers for all those things. I tried to find a nice middle ground, and I'm not saying that this project doesn't have concerns. Every project has concerns. I feel like we've tried to address them as best as we possibly can, tried to find the middle ground, tried to find something that the market actually wants, is looking for, is needed, that we're meeting price, for the market. I'm trying to do all of that. And I think I've done a good job. I've done a lot of research. I've looked at the other townhomes in the community, both in Chamblee and in neighboring Brookhaven, looked at the prices, looked at what they offer, and that's where I've come up with what we've done here. I've tried to make sure that, everything is facing away from that single-family neighborhood to try to give that separation between them. So, once again, without having more land, I'm not sure how I can address all of these concerns, because if we go down, the economics just don't work. That's just being straight and honest about it. Thank you. Any more questions?
All right. That takes us down to Claremont, which is the dumpster. Any questions from council on this item?
Actually, I do want to compliment the applicant for the cleanest and most informative presentation we've ever had for a dumpster enclosure. Thank you very much. I'm impressed. You did your homework, you prepared, and we recognize that.
Good job, sir. All right, that's 5037 Peachtree, and this is, any questions on this item?
I believe the applicant has left.
I do believe the applicant left. Is there questions for staff on this item? Yeah, I believe he thought we were done.
Well, that's unfortunate.
All right. No, we'd be talking to ourselves at this point.
I mean, I do that.
Yeah, we do that enough.
Yeah. That takes us down to Hilden Circle. This is the front porch. Questions from council? No? Good. And then Lawson Way, that's the carport and shed. Questions from council? All right. All right, that'll take us down to, why am I getting so much feedback?
We had to turn,
What's that?
we had to turn the volume on the mics up because there was an issue with hearing, and I think there's some feedback between the podium mic.
Yeah, this is pretty bad. All right, that takes us down to public comments. I'll read the rules of order for public comments. The mayor is the presiding officer. All remarks shall be addressed to the city council as a body, not to individual members. Anyone wishing to speak can and will come to the microphone. Give your name and address to the city clerk. Limit remarks to 3 minutes unless further time is granted by council. Not speak a second time until everyone wishing to speak has spoken once. No one can speak more than twice. Please do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. Right, sir?
Okay.
Yes, sir?
Ronnie Mayer, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council. Ronnie Mayer, 53 Reading Road. I remember my address. I just want to put a moratorium on apartments. I love this gentleman doing home ownership. And then I hear another gentleman that he got a letter in the mail about his stuff. I'm still not happy about what happened at Hardy Avenue in 4th Street. I never got a letter in the mail, nothing. My next door neighbor owns a house on Hardy right next door to 4th Street. And I had to call him and tell him what y'all done over there with, y'all call it workforce housing, I call it Section 8 housing, but you're doing this new development over here at the Chamblee New the City Center, and folks that live in workforce Section 8 housing are not going to be the ones who shop over there. So you need to do a little home ownership and have a moratorium on apartments. I think you got enough apartments. If y'all drive around early Sunday morning and hear the loud exhaust pipes running down Peachtree echoing, and all these people, even though they're in apartments, you can't even hear yourself speak. There's not a noise ordinance. Years ago, we used to have a noise ordinance. We used to have urban camping laws. There's a woman's been sleeping on the park bench in front of Walmart for 3 or 4 weeks. This week, I had to call police. She was pulling up the irrigation system here. And I don't know who did it, but I feel a lot of either meanness towards me, either you like me or you don't like me. I love y'all city, our city. I had a older black gentleman, 84 years old, Vietnam vet, Agent Orange, and he gets scrap metal. Well, the people left a camper trailer in the old Pierce Oil building, and they have that property down there at Lawson Way on the corner. And they said, Ronnie, you can have it if they'll let you have it. Well, the guy in charge of everything said, well, you know, one person said, well, we can't let you in there. I said, well, get somebody from the city to pull the trailer out to the street, and I'll take it to the scrap guys, the iron place, and let him ride with me. I'll tow it with my big truck. And so one day it just disappeared, and I think it's out of meanness. I don't know who did it and who said to do it, but it could have been hauled out and gave to that older gentleman that he's a Vietnam vet with Agent Orange, stomach cancer, and I was going to haul it for free, and it just disappeared. And I think that's
Mr. Mayor, we're at time.
very mean-structured, but y'all have a great city here. We need to have a little board and of people like me with common
We're at
sense to
time,
help
Ronnie.
y'all. Thank you.
Ronnie. All right, sir. There you go. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you. My name is Eugene Marie. I occupied 5037 Peachtree Road for the past 4 years. Prior to that, it was Matthew Burns, and we are Energy Fitness. We help clients, elderly and middle-aged clients, help to get physically in shape. It's a safe place where other gyms are more compact or have a lot of people there. Our gym is smaller and helps with people who have anxiety or just feeling a place where they just need one-on-one training, and that's what we provide here at Energy Fitness. If you do go forward with the variance at 5037 Peachtree Road, I would not only lose my livelihood, but plenty of clients who comes there weekly to get physical training would also lose a safe place where they can come and train and feel safe and be able to leave. So with that, I land by saying I oppose the variance at 5037 Peachtree Road. Thank you.
And thank you for your patience. Come on up.
Topic. Again, my name is Jack Joyner. I live at 5151 Peachtree Road. When the gentleman came up here and says, look, I'm meeting the guidelines with the minimum parking, but the thing about it is, do we always need to go with the minimum? Do I put the minimum amount of gas in my car I need to go to work every day? Do I put the minimum amount of car insurance on my vehicle? Do I always select the minimum health insurance for my health? We need to get away from this minimum. You got to anticipate extra. You got to anticipate people having friends over or having a social event or something. They're trying to put too much in a small area. And I just found out about this 2 days ago. I didn't receive anything in the mail. I wasn't notified about anything. Word of mouth, that we heard about this, and luckily I was able to come down here and voice my opinion. So thank you for your time.
Anyone else?
My name is Tim Farley, 2381 Caladium Drive in DeKalb County. For several years and in several Chamblee plans, including the Trails Plan and the Comprehensive Plan, it's been said that the PCG in Chamblee would go forward sometime in the future when the Century Center was redeveloped. And in all of those documents, the path of the PCG has always been assumed to run along the south and east side of the creek, which is where the Path Foundation drew it in their original study. Now, according to what I've read in the comprehensive plan, Chamblee plans to spend $500,000 between 2026 and 2028 to plan out the PCG. But that's not listed in the fiscal year 2026 budget as far as I could tell. So I assume that's going to start at 2027 in the earliest. Now, all of these plans are based, like all plans, are based on assumptions. And when assumptions change, plans need to change. The Century Center redevelopment is here. We just saw pictures of it. We've seen blueprints. And as you saw in Alliance's presentation, they foresee a way to build the PCG on the north side of the creek, which varies from everything we've seen before about PCG Chamblee. And they've smoothed it over with Highwoods to get the rest of the easements necessary over to Claremont. That's very different than the south side of the creek, which was basically retention ponds. Different way to build the creek, and who knows, it might be cheaper to build the PCG on that side of the creek. We also saw a presentation of how far along Wood Acres Park is, which is fantastic, and at some point that's going to be an entrance to the PCG. Another thing that you may or may not know is Brookhaven is months away from breaking ground on the part of their trail that comes up to Claremont Road. It's going to put the PCG right on Chamblee's doorstep. But that is also on the north side of the creek. So it makes a lot of sense to be on the north side of the creek when you get to Claremont so that you can match up with what Brookhaven is, like I said, about to start building. Now, Atlanta Regional Commission, last year, or whenever they did it, allocated $800,000 to DeKalb County for them to start engineering on their part of the PCG, which is north of Chamblee. And just yesterday, the Atlanta Regional Commission allocated $13 million for construction of the PCG in Brookhaven. The ARC considers the PCG a trail of regional significance. That means that it is an important transportation corridor. None of this that I've just told you was the case when Chamblee's master plan and trails plan and parks plans were drawn up.
Mr. Mayor, we're at time.
So this changes all the assumptions. So all I'm asking for you to do
Thank you, sir.
is to start moving forward, start spending that $500,000.
Thank you, sir.
And let's start getting P&E going and figure out how much this trail is going to cost.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to address council?
I'm Jeffrey Epps, and I'm at 1747 Woodcliff Place, Northeast, Atlanta, Georgia, in Brookhaven. And I just wanted to say that the project like the PCG is essentially like a three-legged stool. It takes the community, and we at the PCG Inc. organization are the voice of the community. It also takes the landowner and tenants. And it took more than 8 years for us to get to the first yes from someone that owned the land or were tenants over in that area to support the PCG. At that time, back in the old building, we brought you letters, and expressed their support for the PCG. The third leg is the city. And it is our hope at this point that the city will seize this opportunity and hold up that stool. Thank you.
Jeffrey? Anyone else wishing to address council?
Yasmin Naik. I live at 1430 Dresden Drive in Brookhaven. You might think that I am here to talk about the Peachtree Creek Greenway, which I love the Greenway. I think it's great, and I am actively involved with that, and I am in support of the Century Center project, which is looking to expand the Greenway into the city. But I also wanted to mention something that I noticed in a lot of these presentations is that the City of Chamblee adopted your Safe Streets for All action plan 2 months ago, and part of that is making sure that pedestrians as well as cyclists have access to transportation paths, multimodal transportation, and I'm actually an expert in this field, and so, my apologies. I've written several safety action plans that have been adopted by municipalities in the Metro Atlanta area, as well as complete streets policies for those municipalities. And so I just wanted to make a kind request that moving forward, any sort of variances, zoning requests, recommendations that y'all review and y'all look at, also take in considerations of that plan and consider elements to support our pedestrians as well as our cyclists. I noticed that some of the plans had sidewalks that were less than the minimum recommended by NACDO, which is at the very least 5 feet, ideally 6 feet wide. And I also noticed that bicycle infrastructure is sorely missing on a lot of the plans that were proposed today, especially along major corridors that see the multimodal transportation. And so I thank you for your time, and I hope that you'll consider transportation safety as a priority for the city and continue considering it since adoption of your plan.
Thank you. Good job. Anyone else wishing to speak to council?
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Raida Chaudhary. I live at 7305 Druid Hills Reserve Drive Northeast in Brookhaven. I do not come prepared with a statement, but as a resident of Brookhaven, I just want to speak in support of extending the Peachtree Creek Greenway. I live right behind it. Unfortunately, my apartment complex is not very well connected in terms of walking to the Greenway, but it is a very short drive away. I greatly benefit from it personally. I am very eager in having an extension of that to connect and have a more walkable Atlanta, have connected communities, have protected nature pathways. And so I am in support that the project, that development plan, that they're eager to help with extending the greenway. And I just want to encourage this council to make sure that any final development plans do in fact include an extension of the greenway. And I hope that whatever necessary planning and funding continues to keep the Peachtree Creek Greenway in mind and making a more walkable community in mind. That's all I have. Thank you.
Else wishing to speak?
Hi, I'm Rhonda Fox. I am a resident of Brookhaven, 2250 Matthews Street, Brookhaven. And I'm very excited about what's happening in the Highwoods Century Center Office Park. It's been a long time coming, and I think it's congratulations on having a developer who gets it. You know, they seem to have the concept of the value of green space and the value of public space and the value of connecting to everything else, which is important. Also, kudos to you for building beautiful trails in your rail trail system in downtown. It's brilliant, and it has really, I think it's done exactly what you wanted it to do. It's made Chamblee a destination and a place people want to live, so that's awesome. Now is an opportunity. You have been focused on Chamblee City Center, and it's paid off. The Century Center has been, well, when development happens, we'll get to that, which makes sense. It's here now. So now I ask the council, this ball is in your court. Now it's time for you to focus on the south side of your city because you have an amazing opportunity. I think the developer will be a real partner and be able and interested in partnering with you to make this a jewel. And the connected piece, Brookhaven's coming up. Your people, your citizens, want to be able to get on the Greenway and go. They want to go through Brookhaven. They want to go to the Atlanta Beltline and all points beyond, as well as going north beyond 285. So I think now's the time to do the Greenway, focus on it, do whatever you can, maybe grants. If, let's just say, for example, the developer can't build the whole thing, which is, of course, what I would love to see. But if that's not in the ballpark, maybe they can build a portion of it. They already have some ideas on how they can advance the Peachtree Creek. And that's what we're asking for. Advancement. Love it to be built completely. But at least let's do everything we can do to get it as far down the track as we can and as close to completion as we can. So, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to council? All right, I don't see anybody else. All right, we do not have executive session this evening, so we are out of here. Thank you for coming.